I'm Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com, and today I'm here to show you how to do this really fun hanger swirl. Now, this hanger swirl technique is a cold process recipe that's maybe a little more advanced. So if you haven't made soap before, go back and watch the first 5 to 10-ish episodes on this channel. Maybe grab one of my books and get a few batches under your belt before you attempt this particular technique. That said, it looks really impressive, but it isn't that hard because we use this tool. This is our hanger swirl tool, and you can bend it to any size or shape you want, and it's what makes these really cool vertical lines. This soap uses one of our newer pumpkin fragrances. This is Pumpkin Sandalwood, and it is exquisite. You know how some pumpkins smell like, pumpkin pie or pumpkin latte? They smell a little sweet with milk notes. Not this one. This one smells like kind of your adult version of pumpkin, meaning there's not a lot of sweetness in it. Those pumpkin notes really come through, and the sandalwood gives it a really warm base, so it makes a great candle as well as soap. Interestingly enough, this does discolor just a teensy bit, which is one of the reasons we did an interesting design element. So this is a bar that was just made about a week ago versus the bar that was made 2 days ago. Do you see how the orange has already darkened up? That's the discoloration in this fragrance, but we're working with it with this design. Specifically, when we get to making this soap, this white layer, no fragrance in it to keep it perfectly white, and we're using the discoloration to our advantage to make a more bold orange. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to clear this all off, and then I'm going to suit up for safety. So the most important rule of soap making is make sure that you always are suited up for safety. So that means long sleeves. That means closed-toed shoes. That means long pants, children and pets out of the area, and you've got a solid 45 minutes to 60 minutes to work. I also want to make sure that you are working in a well-ventilated area because those lye fumes can really tickle your nose and really irritate you. Some soapers like to soap up in a respirator just for that very reason. We have our lye water. It's been prepped with sodium lactate so that the soap releases a little bit faster and just a little bit more shiny and hard. We're using the Brambleberry Lots of Lather Quick Mix. This has a full 3% of castor oil in it, which helps to produce big copious bubbles that are stable. I created this recipe way back in 2007, 2008, 2009, and we've been using it ever since. It is a staple of our soap making life here at Brambleberry. Today we're going with a 5% super fat, but if you want even more bubbles, you can drop this all the way down to a 3% super fat. To get started, I'm going to put my stick blender into my oils that are already melted. Pour slowly down the shaft of the stick blender, which helps to prevent bubbles and helps to prevent splashing. The last thing we want is any splashing lye water. I'm going to put my lye water container to the side after getting all the last of it out and just give this a quick stick blend. I love to see that creamy white just right away. That tells me that trace is coming on nicely. I'm going to be working with a pretty light to medium trace here. I do need to layer my layers, but I don't want them to be so thick that I can't actually use the hanger swirl. Once I have this at a light trace, meaning, you know what, I can see that we have soap, I can see we're traced, but I can't see any trailings on the surface. I'm going to separate this into 3 containers. I'm just going to put them into 3 equal amounts in these easy pour containers. I love the easy pour containers because of the long spouts. Eyeballing it, if you really were concerned, you'd want to weigh these out. But I'm just going to eyeball it. And then after that, I'm going to add my fragrance and my color. I've already pre-measured out my fragrance, and interestingly enough, because it's such a strong fragrance, I went a little bit on the light side. This is one of Brambleberry's really knock it out of the park strong ones. And I have even amounts here. And there's not going to be any fragrance in my white layer. So I'm going to have to split all of my fragrance between my orange and my black. Just going to get the very last little bits of drips out. Don't want to waste any soap. So the amounts I'm using are going to be in the instructions. And this is kind of a what you see is what you get. I'm going to do probably just about 2 teaspoons-ish of this pre-mixed orange. It's pre-mixed in a little bit of oil to make sure there's no clumping. And I'm going to go with less of the black. This is a pretty powerful black. And notice I'm using the same spoon because I can always go from lighter to darker with my colors, but you can't go from darker to lighter. And now for the titanium dioxide. I'm going to go with a full tablespoon of this titanium dioxide that is fully mixed up already into a lightweight oil, so it helps disperse any clumps we have, because titanium dioxide really loves to clump. Full teaspoon, just a little teensy bit more for good measure. And then I'm going to give these a good whisk before I add my fragrance. I'm going to be whisking from light to dark, so that way I can use the same exact whisk. These have gotten to be a nice medium trace already. I'm really glad that I went ahead and poured at that very thin trace. And then after this, I'm going to add my fragrance, just splitting it between the black and the orange. And it's going to get stirred again, so when you see a little bit of white on the sides, don't worry, that's going to go away. And half here, and half here. And how you choose to do your layers is totally your preference. I like 3 because I find that 3 colors really showcases that hanger. If you do much more than that, it kind of can get muddy, but interesting and unique for sure. And now that my colors are in, it's time to make layers. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pour that first layer of black, and there we go. I'm going to give this a tamp down, see how if we get it all the way covered. Didn't quite get it all the way covered, so we're going to go just down the side here. Whee! Okay. And then we're going to go with white. Going to give us some good contrast. Really, love these easy pour containers, so you can do just this. This trace is just a little bit thicker than I like to work with, by the way, for this. Okay. And then a little bit of orange. Orange, you notice, is a nice little, it's easier to work with because it doesn't have that titanium dioxide, so it's not quite as thick. Okay. And now it's time to do another black layer, and this time we're going to do all the black. Whee! So that makes it a lot easier. I'm going to spatula that out. And the soap is getting to be a pretty thick trace, but not to worry, that just means it's going to hold its design better. I'm going to tamp this down because remember, we're going for kind of flat lines. Then we're going for the rest of the white, and I'm really glad to be done with this white because it is really thick at this point. And I'm going to spatula that out as well. And then again, my orange is kind of a much nicer consistency right now, which is great. So one thing I would mention, when you're kind of working with as thick of a layer as I just worked with the titanium dioxide, you might not get the hanger to pull quite as much, but quite frankly, it's still going to be a beautiful bar of soap because it really is going to keep that design. And there we go. I'm going to do that. And then from here, tamp it down. And you insert your hanger swirl on one end, and you go over, you pull up just to the very surface, you go over, you push down. You go over, you pull up just to the very surface, go over, push down. I'm going to try for one more. Oof, I'm going to go down on that one. And then you have the difficult decision. Do you go all the way to the bottom and pull up? Or do you just pull up here? And I'm just going to pull up right here. There we go. I do want a little bit of design flair on the top though. So I'm just going to set this to the side, grab myself a spoon, and get to designing. So I'm going to go just a nice, easy, I don't know, what are these called? Mohawks? A nice little easy wave kind of down the middle just to give this a little bit of playtime here. And then we're going to use the Brambleberry Snowflake Sparkle Mica. if you use the biodegradable black glitter from Brambleberry on this very, very particular one, we found that the black just doesn't quite pop as much as if it has a white base. So the glitter you can actually just kind of sprinkle on yourself. You don't have to use a little sieve thingy. So I'm just gonna sprinkle it on. And then from there, heat pad it up for 4 hours. Make sure that it goes through a nice gel phase, and then wait a few days to cut. So this soap was made just a couple days ago. We made it in the studio, and our temperatures in the studio are, you know, fair to middling. They're pretty hot and pretty warm, about 70-ish. This was gelled just a little bit. So we put the heat pad on low and just left it there. So it did go through probably a full gel phase, which does help it come out. The lots of lather tends to be pretty hard. And we also used sodium lactate in this recipe. Ooh, I love how they look. These are just such pretty colors. So 4 to 6 weeks of cure time, and then they're ready to package up, sell, or give away. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you liked this hanger swirl technique, head over to brambleberry.com. We have a couple other hanger swirl technique projects for you to look at and get inspired by. And speaking of inspiration, if you make this project, or really any other, I'd love to see it. Hashtag it Bramble on social media so I can see it, your fellow soap makers can see it, and everyone can be inspired by what you create. And finally, if you liked this video, I'd love a thumbs up below and a subscription to our channel. Just smash that subscribe button and get notified each and every time we come out with a new video. Until next time, happy soaping. So this question comes to us from Qui D. Thanks so much for this great video. You're welcome. Do I have to let the soap sit in the molds for 3 to 4 days and then let it cure for 2 to 3 weeks like the written instructions say, or can I just cut it after 24 hours and use it? My goodness, such a great question, because everyone wants to cut their soap and use it right away. The waiting is the hardest part. And I mean, this soap, which was just made 2 days ago, it's nice and hard. Why can't you use it right away? Well, the answer is you kind of can, but a couple things will happen if you do. 1, this soap needs to sit for 4 to 6 weeks to let all the water evaporate out of it, making it extra hard and long lasting. If you use this right away, it is going to die in the shower really quickly and leave you with a puddle of like goo. You don't want that. Your customers don't want that. And anybody you gave that to doesn't want that. So that's the first reason you want to make sure you're waiting that full 4 to 6 weeks. The second reason is that even though 97% of the saponification reaction, meaning your lye and water and your oils have married together and turned into soap, 97% of it happens in the first 24 hours. The last 3% happens over the next 4 to 6-ish weeks. This has been proven by Kevin Dunn that did scientific experiments in an actual college course where he teaches. So you want that last 3% to make the soap extra conditioning and extra gentle. So yes, the 4 to 6 weeks is really important to making a soap that doesn't dry out skin and lasts a long time in the shower. So this one comes from Adina. She posted this on our African Black rebatch soap base video, and she says, can I make my own rebatch soap base by making my own normal cold process soap, curing 4 to 6 weeks as usually, and use as rebatch soap? Yes, you absolutely can do that, but one thing you don't need to do, and one thing you probably don't want to do, Adina, is actually let it cure for 4 to 6 weeks. The secret with rebatching soap is you want to make a cold process batch as normal. Then, as soon as it's hard, you can cut it into little cubes, you can shred it, and then it's ready to use right away, because the application of heat during the rebatching process helps the soap to cure out just like normal. Then from there, you cure and dry that soap for 4 to 6 weeks. We do have some rebatching videos on this channel. We also have lots of rebatching projects on brambleberry.com. And thanks so much for asking a question. If you want to see your question answered next time, post it below.